Welcome to the What's Your Ceiling podcast. We're your hosts, Monte Wyatt and Paul Szynski. Wherever you are in life, there is a higher ceiling. This podcast is how you become aware of it and how to take action to push through it. It's time to discover your ceiling. Before we get into this month's episode, here's a short message from Adding Zero's Executive Development. As CEO, you demand performance and results from your team. If you're committed to developing a cohesive, driven organization that achieves successful outcomes every single month, we need to talk. It's time to see how organizational and executive development from Adding Zeros can help. We focus on strategic planning, executive coaching, team alignment and engagement, organizational culture, and clarity of implementation. Contact Monte Wyatt by booking an appointment at www.addZerosNow.com. That's ADDZEROSNOW.com, AddZerosNow.com. If you're ready, now is the time. I have a few coaching spots available for 2025. Lock in your team today. Now let's begin today's episode. Welcome to the What's Your Ceiling podcast, where we talk about your health, your family, your business. I'm your host, Monte Wyatt. If you're a CEO, executive, or business owner, then this is the show for you. We call our audience the Achievers because you're always striving for the next level. And I have to tell you, I'm excited about having a return guest on the show today. She's written a book that can and will help every one of us and impact our lives and our health. Amanda Brink Hull is a health and wellness coach whose foundational values of respect for nature, importance of nutritious food, and maintaining a strong work ethic. And her book is titled, get it right here, Rooted, and the Down-to-Earth Basics of Wellness, and it offers a holistic view on health. So welcome, Amanda, back to What's Your Ceiling?
Awesome. Thank you so much for having me. Always, we've known each other for a long time, Monty, and it's always good to talk to you, and so appreciate you having me on the show.
Absolutely. I look forward to it. You know, we spoke a number of months back, and you said you were getting ready to launch a book and you were all excited. And so I'm really glad you're here to tell the story and what all that you've done with it and what you hope to accomplish with it. So I appreciate your time as well. So
Absolutely.
so a lot has changed in the last 2.5 years since you've been on the show. And maybe
Yeah.
just give us a little view of what you've been up to for a couple of years.
Oh my gosh. That's a really good question. Time goes by so quick, and I cannot believe all that's happened in the last 2 years. But in the last year, my husband and I have become new empty nesters, I guess. So we sent our last kid off to college last fall, and he's in the Chicago area, about ready to head back again for another school year. So we're empty nesters. That college experience went well for our youngest last year, and so we felt safe to move to Florida. So we moved from Iowa to Florida. We've always had not always, but for the last several years, we've had a vacation home in Florida and decided to make it our permanent residency, which is just a great area down here, and we love it. It's a sunshine state, so it's therapeutic to get out in nature almost every day. The weather suits us well, and I wrote a book. So, I mean, my gosh, like how much can you actually accomplish or do in a 2-year time period? But all really positive things, and everybody's doing well, great. And the book is out, and that's why I'm here, so we can talk about it. And hopefully it will help people. If you're going to buy the book, you're going to read the book. And I just want people to get like one or two little tidbits that they can take away to make their lives healthier, happier, better, more productive.
Absolutely. You know, I really enjoyed the books. You've got a lot of great stories in there about your childhood, your growing up with your family, and you've got some great simple tips. And I don't mean that derogatory. They're so simple because they're things that everybody can and should do every single day. And so I
Mhm.
look forward to talking about that. But what made you write the book?
Well, a lot of things. So I've always been really passionate about health and wellness, have served voluntarily in different positions throughout my career, as far as, an unpaid position to just help employees become healthier. And coming from a background of marketing and advertising, which is, what I've been doing, that has been my career for about 30 years now, realize that we are so overcomplicating things, especially, you watch TV commercials. the internet, social media. We have so many voices shouting to us every single day on what's right, how can we lose weight, how can we look better, all of the things that we just want a quick fix for. And it's not that easy. But the basics, going back to how I grew up in the 80s and maybe early 90s, really worked. I mean, we were healthier back then. We were more engaged with each other as far as our connections. We weren't in our noses, our noses weren't in our phones 24/7. And it was just a healthier way to live, but it was basic. It wasn't, there's nothing, crazy, confusing about it or complicated. It's just very basic. And so we tend to forget that now with all the marketing messages that we encounter on a daily basis, the thousands and thousands of them. And a lot of wordsmithing goes into those marketing messages as well. And so when you strip all of that away, being healthy and happy is actually quite simple.
Absolutely. It is, but it's the discipline that makes it happen. And that's
Yep.
part of what you mentioned in the book as well is the discipline of doing it. And
Yeah.
so I thought that was great. What do you enjoy most about writing the book?
Well, it's interesting. People ask me, like, how did I write this book? Like, how do you find time to do something like this? And I actually find writing to be quite therapeutic. And I might, mention it a time or two in the book also as like ways to just, find mental peace, build mental resilience. But it's like writing is kind of a hobby of mine. And so throughout the years, I write blogs, I write articles, whether it's in a notepad or my phone or my computer. And so I had a lot of the material already written, just because I like to write things down. I like to use, that creative piece of my brain. And so putting it all together was like, I'm going to be 50, which I already turned 50 in May. But it's like, I really kind of want to write and have a book published by the time I turn 50. So why not take all of these things that I've put together over the years and write a little bit more to try to find some transitions between all of the various topics covered in the book and put out a really good piece that can, you know, commiserate my dad, who's mentioned in this book, but also just, the childhood and what a really great, I don't know, just what a really great childhood looking back we had. And I wish a lot of kids and families had that now in this day and age.
You mentioned your dad and your childhood. I'd love to hear a story that from the book that you really enjoy telling about your childhood, because I think that really ties to health and wellness of how your family lived and how you ate, how you exercised, different things like that. Just if you would share a story from the book.
Well, and it's interesting because going back to what you said a little bit ago about being disciplined about the basics. And I don't know as if it was so much disciplined back then because we just had to, right? We weren't as sedentary as we are in this day and age where we have computers. And most of us sit behind a desk 7, 8, 9 hours a day, and then we come home and sit some more. In the 80s and 90s, we didn't have computer jobs. So the work we did, there was a lot of physical labor. We were in sports. We had to go outside and play and use our brains to imagine, building a tree house, building a fort, all of the things that kids used to do pretty regularly when they didn't have cell phones. And so it's really about, just being outside. Like I remember days upon days, whether it snowed. I mean, the blizzards in Northwest Iowa were horrible and the summers were horribly hot, but our family was outside all the time, whether it was building snow forts, just laying in the snow. I talk about, laying in the snow with my sisters on just really crisp, quiet, cool days and just having that moment of silence to just, I don't know, it just felt really good and peaceful. And then, our summers were filled with, I start the book off with gardening. We absolutely hated to garden. It was a lot of fun to plant in the springtime, right? April and May were great. But then when you got into late June and July, when you actually had to weed the garden and the mosquitoes were horrible, and you had to harvest the peas and shuck the peas and pick green beans, it was just miserable. But we all did it. We gathered around the kitchen table. We put the work in. We canned a lot of food. We froze a lot of food. And it's just what we did. And so it's like there was a lot of memories in that, a lot of really good conversations, and a lot of really good quality family time spent. So just getting outside.
That's a great point. A lot of people grew up with gardens and growing your own food, and now today it's rarely done. You go to the farmer's market to get that kind of stuff,
Hmm.
and
Hmm.
people aren't growing it themselves. And so I love that story about shucking the peas and just doing all the work.
Yep, had a lot of sore thumbs back in those days. Shucking peas is hard work. And I'm telling you, when we shucked peas, it was by the 5 gallon bucket full. So we all had to participate if we wanted to do anything else in the day. We all had to chip in and share the workload. So,
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, you go through in the book with a number of tips on how to stay healthy, how to be healthy, and I'd love for you to give us a few basics of wellness that we all should be thinking about and we all should put more energy into and be more disciplined with.
yeah. So I think it's really, the basics, along with just moving more, which we didn't schedule exercise like we do today, right? You schedule your walk, you schedule your time at the gym, you go to a group class. We didn't have that. Like I said, we just moved more. So I think the first thing is moving more throughout the day. If you can make it part of your day, whether that's getting up, taking a break from your desk, if you have a pet, make sure that you're taking your dog, if you have a dog, for a walk, because dogs are animals. They deserve exercise too. They actually love it. I don't know a dog in the world that does not like going on a walk, but it's like you owe it to yourself, you owe it to your pets, you owe it to your children, your spouse, to just get up and move more, get outside, take a walk. It's also mentally therapeutic. So just even a simple walk throughout the course of the day, before work, during your noon hour, and then maybe at the end of the day after dinner, does amazing for not only the body but the mind. And then as far as nutrition, again, it's just back to the basics. Basics. Nowadays, people might think, oh, it's just really easy to go to the grocery store and pick out whatever you want, your chips, the processed foods. There's ready-made everything just out of convenience. But in all actuality, that food that is made for us out of convenience, which is so incredibly tempting to buy and eat because it is delicious and it doesn't take any time to prepare, those are the foods that aren't great for us. And so getting back to natural foods. So if you have, your natural, like a chicken breast, a side of broccoli, a potato with real butter, not margarine. Margarine is a processed butter like substance, more like plastic. But it's like, get back to how we ate. We had home cooked meals every day. We sat around the table as a family and enjoyed the food that was made for us, and some really good conversations. So I think those would probably be my basics, which definitely do surround nutrition and exercise, but also connection. There's some other chapters in my book that touch on other things like financial wellness and mental wellness and getting enough sleep, because that's super important too. So, but nutrition is definitely a big part of that, and movement is definitely a big part of just living a really good life.
I loved how you make wellness very holistic because you talk about mental, you talk about fitness,
Mhm.
you talk about food, so it is a bigger picture of how are we
Mhm.
healthy in every aspect of our life, not just one area. And
Right.
so many times people are focused on losing weight, but they're not getting good sleep, or they focus on their mental aspect, but they're not exercising. So
Mhm.
it's there's I loved how you connected all those different types.
Yeah. And it's just little changes. I mean, it can be very overwhelming, but you just have to take like little changes at a time, really get those down, and then add to those changes. Build your foundation one step, one building block at a time. So it's not super overwhelming, because, like I said, it can be overwhelming. Most of us want a quick fix. We want a pill that's going to do it all for us, and we want to see results in a week. And that is not the right way to go about things, because it's not sustainable. There's no such thing as a magic pill. There's no such thing as a magic serum that's going to take the wrinkles away. It just, that stuff doesn't exist. We want to believe really, really badly that that stuff is going to work for us, but it just doesn't. And so we really have to just strip away all of the, like I said, the marketing messages, the products, and services that promise these false hopes, and really kind of take a look within ourselves and put a little bit of work in, because in the long run, if you want to make changes to you, you need to invest in yourself. You need to be an active participant in those changes, which is super important.
Absolutely. You mentioned something. I'm going to refer to page 90 for just a second here. You talk about prioritizing yourself because we're our own greatest asset.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's a powerful sentence because we are our greatest asset. If we can't move, we can't help others. If we can't
Mm-hmm.
physically and mentally think well, we can't help others and we can't
Mm-hmm.
fulfill our life's purpose. So I think that simple statement of prioritizing ourselves is powerful. And
Mm-hmm.
it is just taking a little bit of time to go for that walk or a little bit of time to get that food that you should be preparing instead of processed food. So uh,
Yep.
I love that sentence there.
Yeah, and it's so true. And I run into so many clients, because I am a health coach and do that in my spare time, along with still working in advertising and marketing. Um, but, you know, there's a lot of people that feel very selfish when they do that. They feel like taking time for themselves is selfish because they have employees, they have a business to run, they have kids to take care of, a spouse that needs something. And in all reality, if we are not um, mentally well rested, physically well rested, we are not doing ourselves any justice, and we're not doing the people that we serve any justice. And so, it is so important to be your best self so you can serve those people around you to the best of your ability. You
Absolutely.
can't you can't serve them when you're sick. You can't serve them when you're extremely overweight. It makes it very difficult. And so why not, aim to be the best that you can possibly be? And that does, mean that you have to invest in yourself and take time for yourself.
So you mentioned being a health and wellness coach. Tell us a little bit about how you work with clients and what that looks like so they can get a view of what you could help them with.
Yeah, great question. I'm glad you asked, because I don't, as I mentioned before, there's no magic solution. I'm not selling any product or, magic solution. What I do offer is a very educational based, kind of a consulting approach to working with clients. So, first and foremost, I want to make a kind of a comparison with doctors or physicians, whatever they might be. Maybe it's a specialty doctor. A lot of times when we see a doctor, we might get 7 minutes of their time in the exam room. That is it. That is all the time that you're going to get with a doctor who gets paid a lot of money by insurance companies, by you, by Medicare, Medicaid, whatever, to visit with you for 7 minutes. What I do is really do a deep dive into the person's life. What are they struggling with? What are their behaviors? What are their goals? What kind of foods do they eat? What kind of foods do they not like to eat? What does their daily routine look like? Do they have kids in the household? Do they have a spouse to consider? So, anytime you're putting somebody on a wellness plan, to put them on the straight and narrow, a very sustainable path that leads to happiness and a healthier life, you have to take all of those things into consideration. What's their sleep like? Because as you mentioned, and I talk about it in the book, if you are not getting adequate sleep, your body's not functioning properly. That affects, it can create weight gain, definitely mental stress. And so those things have to be addressed. Sleep, even digestion. I talk to people all the time, and I don't want to gross you out, but I talk to people all the time who literally don't poop for a week or 2 weeks. And that's not good either. But that's become the normal because of all the junk that we're putting in our bodies. We're not getting enough healthy fats. We're not getting enough natural fibers in our diet. And so that is a big problem. And that can affect your mental health as well, because the gut directly affects the brain. And so you have to walk through all of these things with a person to get a full picture of how you can help them, and then provide them with baby steps to get to a better self. So it is a little bit of a long process. I mean, my first conversation with people is typically about an hour to 2 hours in length, just because I need all of the information that I can get from them, the medications they're on, because sometimes medications have an effect with certain foods. Or a lot of times I find that clients are on multiple medications that affect each other, but their doctor hasn't told them this information. And those are things that need to be brought to the forefront.
Hmm. Oh, that sounds like a great process. And so you meet with them for an hour or two, and then what happens?
And then I put together a plan for them. So depending on what they need, sometimes people want more of a workout plan or a fitness plan, and that's easily done. But I would say that most of the time it's nutrition. It's all about losing weight or lowering their triglycerides or something that is really kind of focused around nutrition. So based on, what their allergies might be, previous diets, really kind of looking into when they eat, what they're eating, what they're not eating. It's putting together that nutrition plan for them that's going to work best for them to get them to whatever weight they might be wanting to get to a certain fat percentage or muscle mass. So it's all about, putting together, okay, here's what your plan looks like. This is what you need to be eating on a daily basis. These are the types of movements or exercise routines that I would put you on based on your resources, right? Everybody's resources are different. There's a lot of people that have money to get a gym membership. And then I work with clients that don't have money for a monthly gym membership. So what equipment do they have at home? Is there something that we can do to put them into some kind of a workout routine with just using a set of dumbbells? Or maybe it's just a jump rope. You don't need to invest a lot to get really good results. It's just
Mhm.
about being aware and being educated on the changes that you need to make to get to where you want to go.
And then having the discipline to stay focused on that and do it.
Correct. And hopefully I can help with that too. Sometimes people just need an accountability partner. But the other part of because I have a master's in psychology as well, and that has come in handy, when I was in upper management in my previous career, because you have to motivate people, right? Like you have to motivate employees to get them to work for you, to get them to work for the company that you're working for. Um, and you want them to be productive. But it's also a lot about behaviors. And there's triggers in a person's day that trigger a behavior. And so many times, food or sitting on the couch or watching, 7 hours of TV each night, those are behaviors that trigger other bad habits. And so you have to find ways to replace some of those triggers and behaviors to get you on that path to better behaviors that are going to do you more justice than falling into bad habits. So you have to take a look at that also, because a lot of times, for example, if every night you come home, you sit on the couch and you open a beer because you're sitting on the couch, that's sitting on the couch. Every night when you get home, you're popping that beer open. Well, that's, good. I mean, I like the occasional beer, but it's like, is that a good trigger? Bad trigger? Do we need to do something about it? Do we need to replace that sitting on the couch with maybe a 20-minute walk when you get home instead, to reframe how you're thinking about your evening versus just going straight to the couch?
I want to reinforce to our audience, the achiever, just how simple it can be. And it is watching your triggers, changing your behaviors, but being disciplined about the basics, just moving more,
Mm-hmm.
having going to the grocery store and getting natural foods and it might be a little more expensive, but is it worth the health that you're creating in yourself? So I
Yeah.
just want to reinforce to our audience that it doesn't have to take a lot of time. It doesn't have to take a lot of effort to do
Mhm.
what these things that you're talking about.
No, I mean, it really doesn't. And that's what I've incorporated some really great, I think, great simple recipes in the book as well, with pretty colorful pictures, to just let people know it's like, I was working a corporate job for a long time, but I had a meal prepared, a homemade meal for my family every single night of the week because that was important to us. A good home cooked meal to fuel my children who are very heavily active in sports was very important. I mean, not only for me and my mental health and my athletic performance, but so my kids could go to school, pay attention, have the attention span they needed to get through an entire day, and do all of the sports activities that they did at nights and on the weekends. So, it really is. And I will tell you, being a parent and having two children who are now grown that have the lifelong skill of knowing how to shop at the grocery store, knowing how to make home cooked meals for, our daughter has her boyfriend. They cook all the time at home, and food and cooking is her love language. And she loves it. And she's so healthy and she's so amazingly good at it. And then our 19-year-old son, he can make really great food. And his college roommates, I'm sure, super appreciate that as well. But that's a lifelong skill. And they need to know how to fuel themselves as they get into adulthood so they don't fall into the same trap as so many people, with putting on 20 or 30 pounds as they get into their later years. I mean, because that's not fun, and it does impact our health a great deal.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I love that legacy that you're leaving for your kids, that you've taught them to cook. And that's something I don't enjoy doing. I don't enjoy cooking, and so it's hard for me, but you have to do it. You have to find the ways to be healthy, and you have to find the ways to keep that focus. So I'm
Mhm.
glad that you've taught that to your children. I think that's a great trait.
Yeah, and it's hard. And for those people that don't like to cook, that is a really difficult because if you don't like to cook, it's kind of that can be a pretty steep hill for some people. But if you find the fun in cooking, which I think it can be creative, right? So I like that right brain thinking. I like to create. I like to create color on a plate. And dish everybody's food up for them and make it look really good and appealing. So I love that part of cooking. But you can have fun in the kitchen, especially if you have somebody to, cook with. And even if you have kids, oh my gosh, we spent so much time in the kitchen. I mean, not just making healthy food, but making cookies, homemade cookies. There's nothing better than a homemade cookie versus, some like a Twinkie or, Hostess cupcake. Homemade cookies, if you're going to have dessert, make it homemade and teach your kids how to measure, which uses math. Read a recipe off the back of a chocolate chip bag or a recipe book. I mean, there's so many great things that come from cooking that it's not just eating good, wholesome food. It's math, it's measuring, it's reading, and it's experimenting sometimes too. Sometimes you have to be a pretty creative little chemist in the kitchen as well to come up with some pretty great dishes. So.
Oh, that's fantastic. That's fantastic. Well, there's a question that I always love to ask. It's what do you want to be known for? Because you've created a book, you've created some great lessons, some great teachings in it. What do you want to be known for from your audience that you go out and you talk to?
Yeah, and that's a really good question. I would think I love when I get feedback from people that tell me that I've helped them change their life, right? Like that makes me feel really, really good. Like if I've helped somebody, um, lose weight, if I've helped somebody, which I've done several times, get off the medications. I mean, that's a big one. I mean, people are on medications many times for the rest of their lives, not just one, but multiple medications. And that's just not how we should live, right? I mean, that there's side effects that come with all medications. Um, but I just want to be known for helping people, even if it's just one person that I've maybe, I mean, I don't know, extended their life by 5 years. That's a pretty great gift. And I don't know. I mean, like I said, my kids have thankfully, embraced a lot of what I've taught them over the years. And I do mention in the book that I do walk the walk and talk the talk. It's not just a gimmick. I practice what I preach and I feel amazing. And I just want everybody else that I come in contact with to know how great it feels to be healthy, to be able to do things on my own, to be able to cook food, to be able to eat an entire plate and feel full and satisfied and energized to go about the rest of my day. and have the energy to play football with my son, back in the day, or, do cartwheels in the yard with our daughter. I mean, that's kind of important too. And it's a lot of fun. And if I could just help people realize their potential, to feel that good, I've done my job.
Absolutely. Oh, I love that. I love that. So I know we want to talk about how to get your book. So
Mhm.
tell our audience the best way to find your book and to order it.
Yeah, so I will tell you, and Monty's an author too, so he knows I have boxes of these. As an author, we get boxes of these that we can sell directly. So if you know me, my daughter who lives in Des Moines, she has books as well. And so, contact us, DM me. Otherwise, you can get them online. Amazon does sell my books. You just got to look it up. Although Amazon is a thief, and Monty, you might know this as well. They take a lot of the proceeds away from you. But there is a link on my website, which is hull-health.com, hullhealth.com. On the books page, there is a link that takes you directly to the distributor. So if you are not around me or my daughter and can get a book, handed to you in person, definitely go to the distributor's site, and get the book there. But it's at hullhealth.com. Books page, you'll find plenty of information there to get your own copy.
Awesome. Awesome. Amanda, I really love talking with you and hearing your stories and having you share your information on the book. If there was one last tip that you'd give our audience, the achiever, what would you say?
Oh gosh, I would say stop and smell the roses. And that might sound cliche, but slow down. We move way too fast through life. And like we talked at the very beginning, the last 2 years have gone by in the blink of an eye. And before you know it, your kids have left the household. Maybe it's grandchildren is the next step. And then who knows? But stop, smell the roses, take time for yourself, slow down, smile more, and appreciate everything around you because, like I said, life just goes by way too quick. And if we don't stop and just kind of take a step back and appreciate what we've been given and focus, we're missing out on a lot of really great things.
I love it. I love it. I really appreciate you saying that. And I want to reinforce a couple other things that you said. It's little changes at a time.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's a big thing. And we want to be our best self. We should have that confidence and become our best self as we're leaving that legacy of who we are and what we want to be known for. So just
Mm-hmm.
want to leave that for our audience, the achiever. So you are focused on being your best self and make that small change. So what small change are you going to make today to continue to get better and be your best self? So that's what I want to leave today on. So Amanda, thank you so much
Awesome.
for joining me.
Thank you so much, Monty. Always a pleasure and appreciate you having me on the show.
Absolutely. Well, thank you for joining us on What's Your Ceiling. Make sure you like and subscribe, and we'll look forward to seeing you on the next episode. Thank you for joining us.